This is Kananaskis. It is a sleepy resort town nestled inside the Canadian Rockies. But just a week ago, it was anything but sleepy. World leaders had gathered here for the G7. And what grabbed headlines at the G7? Donald Trump leaving early.
Making his G7 presence felt, Donald Trump announces he's leaving early.
But while all this was happening, on the sidelines you have India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi meeting with the Canadian PM Mark Carney. They had a simple handshake, a handshake that could signal the restart of a frozen relationship. Here's where it gets interesting. The fact that Modi even showed up, this was a last-minute invite from the very country that just months ago had accused India of something unthinkable, of orchestrating the assassination of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. So what exactly changed? And what brought India and Canada back to the same table? And why now? Just a quick detour. If you're new here and enjoy deep dives into global power moves and international strategy, hit that subscribe button and like the video. It helps more than you know and lets us keep bringing sharp, unbiased geopolitical analysis right to your screen. India and Canada are geographically as far away as one can be. Even then, both countries are democracies that should have been natural allies. Commonwealth ties, English language, check. Strong educational links, check. And let's be honest, there are plenty of Indian restaurants in Toronto.
A relationship once defined by education, aid, and openness. India and Canada were on the same page.
It all started strong. When India became independent in 1947, Canada was one of the first Western nations to open diplomatic ties. By the 1950s, Canadian Prime Minister Louis Saint Laurent and India's Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru were trading letters and wheat.
16 nations meet in Ottawa for the annual conference of the Colombo Plan. Arriving are representatives of 9 Asian countries receiving economic aid against communism.
In fact, Canada became India's largest wheat supplier under the Colombo Plan. And it didn't stop there. Canada helped India build its own nuclear power program. In 1963, the Cyrus reactor went live near Mumbai. Canadian technology, Indian scientists, things couldn't have been better. And for most of history, be it international trade or sports events, India and Canada have had cordial relations. Tens of thousands of Indian students, professionals, families migrate to Canada every year. In fact, Punjabi became the third most spoken language in some provinces. Take Toronto for example. At first glance, it looks like any other North American city. Glass towers, trams, the occasional Tim Hortons. But zoom in, look closer at the neighborhoods. Brampton, Mississauga. These aren't just Canadian suburbs. These are hubs of Indian diaspora, entire communities built by people who came here from Punjab, Gujarat. And it's not just Toronto. Jump across to Vancouver, same story yet again. All filled with people of Indian descent. And these maps only show permanent residents and citizens. Indo-Canada relations weren't just about your everyday diplomacy. It was a connection much more deeper. So what went wrong? How did two friendly democracies go from trading wheat to trading allegations? Things might have looked warm on the outside, but something was quietly simmering underneath, and eventually it exploded. Literally.
It's the most deadly event in Canadian aviation history, the 1985 Air India tragedy. Everyone on board, 329 people, died.
June 23rd, 1985. Air India Flight 182, en route from Toronto to Delhi, explodes off the coast of Ireland. 329 people dead, most of them Canadian citizens. It was Canada's worst terrorist attack in history. The culprits? Khalistani extremists based in Canada had taken revenge for India's 1984 anti-Sikh operations. For those of you unaware, Khalistan is a separatist movement in India, and they demand a separate state within the Indian regions of Punjab. And this was about to become the root of the entire problem. After the terrorist attack, India was furious, Canada was embarrassed, and the trust completely shattered. Then came another blow. In 1998, India tested nuclear weapons. Remember that reactor Canada helped India build back in the 60s? Well, India used that know-how to go nuclear. Canada then suspended all military and nuclear cooperation with India. Through the 2000s, things were cold. No high-level visits, no big deals.
When words failed, the silence between Delhi and Ottawa said everything.
Until 2015. Enter Justin Trudeau. He visited India in 2018. It was supposed to be a charm offensive. Instead, it became a diplomatic disaster. Justin Trudeau accidentally invited a known Khalistani separatist to a diplomatic dinner. New Delhi was not amused. Meanwhile, while his government was in power, Khalistani activism surged across Canadian cities. Protests, flags, even violence near Indian diplomatic buildings.
Canadian Sikh group gathered outside the Indian diplomatic mission in Toronto on Monday and chanted pro-Khalistani slogans.
India asked Canada to crack down. Canada refused, said it couldn't interfere with free speech. By now, the trust was gone. Trade deals stalled, security cooperation frozen, and yet things were about to get worse. One allegation would take this already strained relationship from cold to nuclear.
It is obvious that the government of India made a fundamental error in thinking that they could engage in supporting criminal activity against Canadians here on Canadian soil, whether it be murders or extortion.
Canada pointed the finger at India. Right after Trudeau's bombshell accusation in 2023, relations weren't just tense, they were collapsing. Student visas plunged, colleges lost revenue. Back home, Trudeau was leaning into the same playbook, showing up at Sikh events, posing in temples. It was vote banking for him. Trudeau needed the Sikh vote, especially for British Columbia and Ontario. And about those assassination claims he made? Turns out, no credible evidence ever surfaced publicly.
Canada has presented us no evidence whatsoever in support of the serious allegations that it has chosen to level against India and Indian diplomats. Indian Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Randir Jaiswal.
And here's what few noticed. Trade between India and Canada never really took a hit. Agricultural imports, critical minerals, tech services. The flow slowed down, yes, but it never stopped. Because it couldn't. Add to that a new Trump presidency, trade tariffs back on the table, Canada found itself squeezed out by its biggest partner to the south. Enter Mark Carney, former central banker, not a populist, and most crucially, not Trudeau. So, in June 2025, with diplomacy frozen and economic pressure building, Canada blinked and invited Modi last minute to the G7. Modi didn't meet Trudeau, he met Carney. And now, with Trump pressuring and global supply chain shifting, Canada needs India more than it wants to admit. So, this isn't just a handshake, it's a recalibration. It's just the beginning of a new phase of Indo-Canada relations. Before I take you leave, if you like the video, please do leave a like and do consider subscribing to our channel if you like our content.